John started that applause. Hello, my name is Bob Roth, and I am the CEO of the David Lynch Foundation, and I am honored to be here because we're collaborating and partnering with John on this extraordinary exhibition. David Lynch Foundation was established 18 years ago to awaken the unifying experience of transcendence within every human being through meditation. Over the past 18 years, we provided Transcendental Meditation, a simple mantra-based meditation, to over 1 million kids in war-torn areas and in high-crime neighborhoods in the US, and also to adults who suffer from high levels of trauma and toxic stress. But the essence of it is transcendence. We are gathered here today to hear from author, artist, and founder of the nonprofit Life Calling Initiative, John Mack. That deserves applause. I actually first saw John on a promotional teaser video for this very exhibition, and it was clear to me just from the video that he was speaking a higher language. When we then connected on the phone, I got John to open up about his awakening that occurred in April 2014. The exhibition in which you currently sit speaks to that awakening, to that transcendence out of the virtual confines of illusion into the depths of our essence. His entire project here at A Species Between Worlds is dedicated to the deeply thoughtful exploration of the increasingly slippery boundary between reality and virtuality, and our decreasing ability to slow down and take in the awe of the natural world. Mack's view of what's important in today's world aligns beautifully with filmmaker David Lynch and the David Lynch Foundation's mission and ethos of consciousness in everything that we do. At the very core of this exhibition is a story of transcendence. John's talk coincides with his recent publication of a volume of poetry, A Land Between Worlds, the shifting poetry of the great American landscape, and his month-long technology exhibition here in New York City, A Species Between Worlds, Our Nature, Our Screens, which weaves a narrative arc exploring our psychological drives in an increasingly digital world. Please welcome everyone's good friend, a true visionary, artist, and a passionate advocate for humanity, John Mack.
Thank you. So thank you for coming out tonight. Before I get into this presentation, this is the last night of a month-long journey for myself and I think over 40 people on my team. And I said this last night and I'll say it again. My production manager said to me on Monday, said to the entire team, let's be really clear here. This week is not a victory lap. And I want to be clear, this week is a victory lap because the past 3 weeks have been absolutely incredible and such a success. So I'm just enjoying this last week. Thank you. So I introduced a group last night, and I was in the green room speaking to one of the women who I was introducing, and she said, you pretty much came into Chelsea, took over a space, created an exhibition, ran a month-long forum. Who does that? And I felt a little bit crazy, and I said, do you think that's crazy to do? And she said, no, on the contrary, I think this kind of stuff should happen more often. So I really like that. I hope coming out of this, it's not just a message and the whole digital thing, but that people get excited and bring forums and endeavors like this in the Chelsea area and liven it up a bit. I think there's a lot of potential in this area in New York City to do things like this. So I hope it's not the last. Okay, so I thought that tonight, with all sort of especially in this country, the division, the taking sides, the conflicts, I just thought it would be really nice to go for a walk in the park and explore the truth of our nature. So I've had the great opportunity to travel to over 50 US national parks and the 7 wonders of the natural world. And I want to show you my favorite things about these travels and this journey. Here are some of my favorite images along the way. This is sort of like show and tell. I love this picture here. Let me tell you why. Before I traveled out to this place, wherever it was, it doesn't matter, I was actually with a hairdresser here in New York, and I said, I'm going to this national park. My hair's a little bit long. It's going to be windy. What can I use to keep it down? And he gave me this great product, and I put it in my hair, and here I am. And look at how good my hair stays. I love this image. So here's another image. I love this. So here, I'm actually trying to hold a cloud, like using perspective to hold that cloud behind me. It was really complicated because you're holding the phone and the clouds are moving, and I failed miserably at it. But what I really don't like about this picture is all the junk on the right. So I just cropped all that out, and it makes the best Instagram post, right? So for those of you who don't know what Instagram is, this is social media. It's a platform to share. And here's what I love most about it. 3 things. First, John Mack posts. This is my own space for self-expression. My home here. People can like the stuff that I post. Here I have 112 likes, which is actually pretty good for me. And then under this, people can comment. So I got 7 comments on it. Here's another image that I like. Actually, I wasn't so happy here. This pilot that's on top of that plane, he was criticizing me for using my phone so much and taking selfies. And we got into an argument, which was great because I just cropped him out anyway. And boom, got this great Instagram post. This is a really good one. 164 likes on that one. Yeah. So on the way back, this was actually in Alaska, and on our way back to Anchorage, he said, look, do me a favor. The next time you go to a national park, put your phone away. Just try it. He said, you're missing something very deep, something that you need to connect to. And I said, okay, I'll check it out. So the next park that I went to was actually Joshua Tree National Park in California. And I went without my device. And let me show you what it looked like. Totally boring. Look at this. This is absolutely colorless, lifeless, no vitality. Terrible. The only thing to do here is really just take a walk. The only thing to do here is to walk around the desert. Now, these are not my words. This illustration comes from a book, this book here called Subpar Parks by an illustrator named Amber Scher. And what she does is she goes on to Reddit and she reads real comments by visitors to national parks. And she's picked the worst comments that people have made at these national parks. So here you see America's most extraordinary national parks and their least impressed visitors. And there's a man there with a telephone, and he's giving it a 1-star rating, okay? So I went to some more national parks. This one, I don't even know what that one is, doesn't matter, just super boring. Somewhat bland, someone said about this park, couldn't agree more. This one is, I know this one. This one is called Saguaro National Park. Now, a saguaro is a specific type of cactus. So let me translate the name of this park. Specific Cactus National Park. That is so boring. Okay if you like cactus. Here's another one. I mean, if we name it like saguaro, you could just call this Random Rock in Ocean National Park. No wow factor. So actually, this photo was in 2016. I took this in 2016. And I was actually upset that this guy from Alaska, here I am traveling the world, spending time and money, and I'm bored all the time. And it was great to realize this because in 2016, this incredible gaming app hit the market. It was called Pokemon Go. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Pokemon Go, I'm going to briefly explain what that is. Pokemon Go is an augmented reality gaming app that uses geolocation technology to create virtual versions of the environment that you're actually standing in. That's one of the features. So This here is one of the Pokemon Go screen views, and you can see to the left, you see the real ocean, and on the phone, you see the virtual ocean. And there's actually an avatar in there, and I'm tethered to that avatar, so where I move, the avatar moves. And there's a very peculiar sort of red and white ball there that I'm going to explain, and you'll see it soon. This ball here collects these creatures called Pokemon. And these Pokemon are scattered all over the world. And you can travel all over the world, and you can flick this ball at them, and you capture these Pokemon. I'm going to show you how it works. So this is how it works. This is a Drifloon. It's a type of Pokemon. And here you see the ball. It's called a Pokeball. And this is it's a trap. It's a cage. And there I catch him in the cage. Now watch. Wait for it. Wait for it. Gotcha. I love that. Just trapping that thing. It's so satisfying. So satisfying. Now you may think, oh my God, this is super boring. Why are you playing this like cartoon game? But no, I researched more, and check this out. There were people, not children, but like grown adults playing this game, not while they're in like a recreation place, but actually on the job. So check out this video, on the job here.
84 in St. Pete right now. Got a Pokemon?
The Pokemon Go craze is affecting everyone, even news reporters. During the morning weather forecast at Tampa station WTSP, meteorologist Bobby Deskins got interrupted in the middle of his report.
St. Pete right now. Got a Pokemon? She's looking at Pokemon right now. This is what the location. You guys gotta be careful with these phones and this Pokemon. You're just walking around all over the place.
Reporter Allison Croft was followed.
If you think that's funny, Washington, D.C., an ISIS briefing.
To confront them in the information space. As the secretary said earlier today, though, and I think it's an important reminder, you're playing the Pokemon thing right there, aren't you?
Just give me a minute.
It's an important reminder. We know this won't be easy. We recognize it's a challenge, and we're clear-eyed about the work we still have to do. This is why we convene this important ministerial, and we'll continue to work with our coalition partners to defeat Daesh. Did you get one?
No, the signal is not very good.
I'm sorry about that. Brad.
So he says, did you get one? He said no, because the cell service is bad. You actually need data reception to play Pokemon Go. But that's not what really convinced me to pick up this game. What really convinced me to pick up this game is something called a Pokemon Go Stampede. I'm going to show you what that is.
Taiwan Pokemon Go players stampede, searching for Snorlax. Thousands of people flocked to Beitou, a northern district of the Taiwanese capital Taipei, on Saturday, but not for its famous hot springs. No, sir. They were Pokemon Go players competing against each other to catch a rare Pokemon known as Snorlax. And you can see...
So not there for the hot springs, but there to catch a Pokemon. Something that does not exist. Okay? And then the final thing that really got me into it is this. I'm going to play right now sort of a point of view of what the energy is like within a stampede.
Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. What is happening? Oh, there it is.
Okay, so that was like the deciding moment. I've got to play this game or I'm missing out on something. So here I am, out in the national park. This is Biscayne National Park in Florida. Super boring. What do? Load up Pokemon Go. Boom, check out that landscape. I mean, all the colors back in my life again. Incredible. Here's another one. This is Channel Islands National Park up the coast of Los Angeles. Super boring, dull. Boom, look at that. I love that horizon, colors. Here's another one, just a river somewhere. Just the colors come back. It's wonderful, wonderful. This is Isle Royale National Park, and I go to play Pokemon Go, no cell service and terrible Wi-Fi. What does that mean? It means I'm forced to face this landscape. And I was sort of like I felt this withdrawal, is it called FOMO, this fear of missing out, because I knew my friends were playing this game, and I just entered this state of just like depression. And I went back to my hotel and I did some research because I wanted to know what the heck is going on with me? Like, why am I so addicted to this game? How did this even happen? And so I found out that actually in 1 month of the game's release, it won 5 Guinness records. And I'm going to show those to you here. So there we go, 5 Guinness records. And then the next question is, why? How did this happen? What is it about me and all of us that's enabling this? And so I landed on this here, self-determination theory, or SDT, which is it's the psychology of human motivation. And the gurus on this topic are psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. They have a wonderful and very complicated book that goes into this. I'm going to synthesize this so it's not so complex. So we have physiological needs, psychological needs. In self-determination, these psychologists posit a core set of psychological needs that, like physiological needs, are universally essential for optimal human functioning, regardless of developmental epoch or cultural setting. And these 3 needs are autonomy, relatedness, and competence. Autonomy, feeling volitional, congruent, and integrated. Relatedness, feeling socially connected. Competence, feeling affectance, and mastery. Now, if any of you have heard of this theory before, you might also know it as the ARC of happiness, because they say when you have autonomy, relatedness, and competence all at once, you are happy. So this is the ARC of happiness, or the arc of happiness. Now, there's a psychologist who wrote an article called Pokemon Go, Augmented Reality Creates Augmented Self. And in it, he speaks of how Pokemon Go delivers each of these 3 psychological needs at once. Autonomy, you're walking around at your own volition outside. Relatedness, you're playing with other people, you share this game together, and you meet new people. Thousands of people running around in a Pokemon Go stampede are going to meet each other and make new friends. Competence, you're collecting Pokemon, and the more you collect, the better you feel about yourself. But we have a problem. Here's the problem. What happens if one of those needs is not met? So let's say competence is not met. Well, now we have a state of psychological lack. And so here I am in this landscape of psychological lack. Now, I call this the landscape of boredom, and I'm just going to briefly go into a little bit of detail of boredom. This is sort of my own introspection. You all may think differently, but I encourage you to go into the depth of boredom, and maybe we land on the same sort of observation. So here it is. Under the umbrella of boredom, I see 2 types. One is outer boredom. Well, I call it outer boredom. And the other I call inner boredom. Now, outer boredom is temporary. Outer boredom is you're waiting for the train, there's nothing to do. You're at the doctor's office. You're sitting around waiting. You grab your device. There's nothing to do. It's temporary. It will pass. When the doctor calls you in, it's over. Then there's another type of boredom that I call inner boredom. Inner boredom is not temporary. Inner boredom can last a day, 2 days, weeks, months, years. It can last an entire lifetime. Inner boredom is that feeling of meaninglessness, pointlessness, purposelessness, okay? Y'all seen the movie Groundhog Day? It's the not being able to get up out of bed in the morning. Okay, so that's the inner boredom. So it's this landscape of boredom that begins the virtual journey. Because what do? We want to run away from it. And so this is the virtual journey. We move away from that landscape of boredom, and we move toward virtual constructs to distract us from that space. This here is the Pokemon Go stampede. The thousands of people are running from this and going in this direction. Now, remember, I didn't have cell service, so even if I tried to run away from it, I was stuck in the landscape of boredom. And that's sort of what this boredom is, right? It's sort of, nothing's really wrong, but it's just uncomfortable. It's sort of all around you. There's no real escape from it. And my question for you tonight is the following. As painful or ordinary or mundane as this landscape might seem, could this landscape be your best friend? That's the big question tonight, okay? What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is I can't go anywhere to virtually bring in constructs to distract me. So this landscape begs me to figure out a different way to find a sense of competence, relatedness, and autonomy, a different type of happiness. I'm sure many of us have heard the concept of self-love, yes? I wonder what that really means. I mean, in this context, could self-love be a knowing, not a belief, a knowing that by the default of your very nature, you are autonomous, related, and competent? If that were true, you create an unconditional happiness. No matter how many Pokemon Go I collect, no matter how many friends I make, whether I have service or not, it doesn't matter. And so if we could do that, could we transcend sort of this membrane, this landscape, and actually shift into an entirely different dimension? This would be the dimension of completion, of fulfillment. So this is alchemy, folks. And I could put a few alchemical symbols up here, but I will just do one because I don't want to make it confusing. This here is the Ouroboros. This is the snake that is totally self-sufficient on its own existence. It requires nothing outside of itself to be complete. Now, the masters of propaganda, the imagery makers, those who want to keep us on the cycle of consumption, virtual consumption, right? They don't want us out here. This would be freedom from their game. They want us to always have self-service because it's through that self-serve, it's through media that the propaganda reaches us. And so the propaganda machine makes sure we have self-service, and they step in and they pull us, they bait us out of that landscape. And I want to take you through just a little bit of the propaganda machine of Pokemon Go. So pay attention to the lyrics here.
I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. Catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause. I will travel across the land, searching far and wide. Each Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Pokemon, it's you and me. I know it's my destiny. Oh, you're my best friend in a world we must defend. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em. Our hearts so true, our courage will pull us through. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all.
I love this. Watch this. Yeah. So, ridiculous. So here's a screenshot of those lyrics. Gotta catch 'em all. Competence. It's you and me. Relatedness. I know it's my destiny. Autonomy. Pokemon is happiness. Right? So, here we are again. Pokemon is happiness. I go to Pokemon Go. Now, the makers of Pokemon Go, Niantic, this company, which I think either sold it to Nintendo or licensed it, I'm not sure. They're smart. They know their game is going to get boring at some point. And they have a whole library of updates ready to release to not lose you. So watch what happens as this landscape begins to become boring. You'll see it become sort of color drained in black and white. Watch what happens. Oops, here comes the update. We go straight into the update. Okay? And now Niantic also knows that at some point Pokemon Go, just the game itself, is going to become boring. And so what do? They have another game, completely different on the way, which is called Harry Potter Wizards Unite. Okay? True story. This was actually a failure. But anyway, we keep updating and updating and updating. And soon enough, where do we go? We head straight into the metaverse. Now, there's a very peculiar thing about this metaverse, which I will get into soon, so just sort of file that for right now. Let's take a look at what the metaverse might look like. And I'll tell you that the video that you're about to see, this is not using virtual reality goggles. This is using something called augmented reality glasses. So you can actually see through the lenses and it still projects digital things. So let's just take a look at what that might look like.
Adiós.
Olá, me llamo María.
¿Qué está pasando?
Buen día, Emilio. ¿Qué puedo hacer por usted?
¿Qué está pasando? ¿Qué es eso?
So, everything that happened here, which is really just gaming, like I'm limiting this to sort of gaming examples. I'm just going to put this in the life category of recreation. So, people who love games, when they have the chance to relax, they play games. This is what they do. But I could just as easily put this in another category. And before I go to the next category, what I do want to say is this. The reason why the landscapes are stacked on the left, they're actually one and the same landscape. But I'm actually trying to show a type of numbness that is being built over time. And I'll just give you an example of what I mean by that. I'm not sure if anyone here saw Avatar in IMAX 3D when it came out, but it was the first time I had seen something so incredible in the movie theater. And when I walked out, I said to myself, how in the world is anyone going to be able to go back to a normal theater and see a movie? Because it was just that sensual, just that, so much candy, right? And so it's like the more efficiently we're fed, the more difficult the withdrawal. And I wonder if a lot of what we're seeing here on the planet with kids not being able to concentrate, they don't want to read books anymore, the attention spans are going down. I wonder if a lot of that has to do with the numbness that we're creating, the difficulty in the withdrawal, because we are so quickly satiated. So this is the life category of recreation, but we could just as easily go to the life category of work profession. So let's say someone has a feeling of lack of self-worth, or they don't feel competent. That's that black and white landscape. What happens? Well, now they're an employee. They feel good about themselves. They're competent. But they see other people getting promoted and switching jobs to better things. And so that landscape also is going to be fleeting. They're going to want more. So what happens? Just before that gets fleeting and they move to a different job, they get promoted. Now they're a manager. Okay? And what happens after that? Well, let's say you make it all the way up to CEO of the company. Now, when CEO gets boring, let's say you retire. What are you going to do when you retire? You can't go back to manager. You have to go up. You have to always climb. You always have to update. Okay? So let's say you get lucky and you become the President of the United States, highest office. Well, even if you're lucky enough to win 2 terms, at some point you're out. What happens? You're forced back to face your best friend. And that is the great thing about the virtual endeavor. It is fleeting. It never lasts, and it will always bring you back to this landscape. So that's work profession. Let's go to another category, relationships. So let's say there's a woman who doesn't feel related, okay? And so she meets Paul. Now she feels really related, and she introduces Paul to her friends and family, and they're like, God, Paul's terrible. Now she doesn't feel competent. So she gets rid of Paul, and she moves to the next one, right? She's with Chris now. And the same thing happens, and then she moves to another one. Here's Jeff. And the question is, and it's a fair question, if we had done our homework first, how many of our relationships would have lasted as long as they did? How many would have even begun to begin with? Right? But again, the great thing about the virtual endeavor, always get back to your best friend here. You're always given the opportunity to penetrate that membrane. And we can even take this to the category of spiritual devotional practice. Let's say you're born Catholic, right? Well, the Messiah didn't show up, Christ still didn't show up, so what do? You switch. Now you're New Age, yoga, you get super flexible, but you're still not enlightened. So what do? You move out of that one. Buddhist meditation, you meditate all the time, doesn't work, move out of that one. Now you're in Brazil doing ayahuasca ceremonies, and you come back to the United States and you advertise it to all your friends. You're like, oh, is this shift in consciousness? It was amazing. And then what happens? You go back, you do it again, you do it again, and that doesn't work, so now you're microdosing psilocybin, right? That's the new thing, right? And you're so spiritual because of it, right? And, well, at some point, you have to throw in the towel, right? At some point, self-love needs to be redefined. It needs to be real. So, here's the peculiar thing about the metaverse. Here we have all of our sort of life categories that I've labeled today. And the interesting thing about the metaverse is that all of these life categories are finding a place in the metaverse. People will have relationships, spiritual devotional practice there, work, it's all there, okay? Recreation. And now, I'm not going to get into it too much. Actually, you'll all receive a book upon leaving the event tonight, and one of the books that's in there is a book that I wrote called Notes to Selfie, Bits of Truth in a Phony World, P-H-O-N-E-Y, phony world. And what I speak about in this book, what I write about, is something that I call the inverse universe. And the inverse universe is when the digital becomes the physical, when the illusion becomes the new truth, when the feeling of spiritual ascension is actually dissension, okay? This is the concern that I have. This is why this exhibit is going on right now, and this is why I'm here speaking to you today. In the virtual endeavor, the image is always fleeting. With technology on the rise, see, in the virtual endeavor, you can always return to that best friend landscape. Not with the future of technology. What's on the horizon is the brain-computer implant, and this is the entrance into the cyborg species. And that will be the solidification of the inverse universe. And that is eternal satiation of the virtual construct. These two landscapes, your best friend, will be annihilated. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't buy into it. So in order to ground this a little bit, I'm just going to use some sort of common terms to speak about this dimension here. So note, no matter how entertained you might be, that is existing within the landscape of boredom, okay? No matter how fulfilled you might feel, it might be within the landscape of unfulfillment. So this sort of zone here, this is the dimension of drama. This is when we've mistaken the game for reality, okay? We could call it the dimension of doing, okay? If we transcended this, the dimension of doing, transcend that, the dimension of not doing or non-doing, the content of consciousness, the contentless consciousness, the dimension of virtual reality, and I don't just mean virtual reality of the digital device, I mean virtual realities also of the psychological device, the dimension of reality, the dimension of separation, the dimension of union, dimension of duality, boredom, entertainment, purposelessness, false purpose, pleasure, pain, love, hate, dimension of oneness, fourth dimensional consciousness, fifth dimensional consciousness, the dimension of suffering, which I call gravity, and the non-suffering weightlessness. And the reason I bring up gravity, I do it specifically for where I'm taking this, which it gets a little bit abstract, but stay with me. So, if boredom is a man-made projection of my own psychological device, and if there is indeed a membrane to penetrate, then I am the center projecting that imagery on a membrane. And boredom is all around me. So if I'm the center of what's around me and there's a membrane, I'm actually within a sphere, okay? Anyone seen, what's that movie with Jim Carrey? He's an actor, but he doesn't know it. Truman Show. So if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, but it's still good even if you know this. If you remember he began the movie on the set. It's all staged. He's an actor, but he's unaware of it. He's been set up, right? And he starts seeing sort of glitches. He starts becoming aware, wait, something's not right here. Something's off. And he starts undoing the virtuality. He starts the introspection, okay? The inquiry. What happens? He realizes that he has to face his biggest fear, which is the water. He's freaked out about the water. And so he gets in a sailboat and he sails out to the horizon and he weathers like this crazy storm. And so he faces his fear and he gets to the end of that. And if you remember what happens, he gets to a membrane. He gets to the spherical, the stage that he's been in. And what does he do? He knocks, opens the door, and steps out, okay? So it's a sphere of illusion that we are in. And so if my perception of boredom is something very individual to me, then if it's true for one individual, it's true for all individuals. And as a collective, the collective consciousness here on planet Earth is exactly that. This is the consciousness of planet Earth. The biggest pandemic that I see on this planet is one of boredom. If we could work that out, our lives would be very, very different here on this planet. And so what we want to do is upgrade our lives. We want to upgrade the energy frequency of this planet. This is planetary consciousness, off-planet consciousness. Remember the Ouroboros? The circle? That Ouroboros, that is a threshold, it's a barrier. Some people might know this barrier as the ring pass not. This is occult sciences. And so what we want to do, see, within here, this is the 1-star rating. And what we want to do, we want weightlessness. We want to get off gravity. If you do that, you transcend the membrane. This is where the eternal star rating is located. This is deep, deep beauty out here. And I'm not trying to suggest that we should all become astronauts. And no, this is find the space within, okay? And I just want to read something to you here. My daughter, Lucia, when she turned 15, she received a gift from a friend. It's a mirror. And her friend had written a quote on this mirror. And my daughter was at school and I read this thing and I thought, oh my God, please, no, not in my house. No. And I actually looked up the quote and it's one of those things that's all over like Pinterest and people send it around thinking it's this great wise quote. And I think it's a wise guy quote. And so when my daughter came home, I said, Lucia, can you please, just read what this mirror says? And she said, sure. This is what it says. And like the moon, we must go through phases of emptiness to feel full again. And I said, Lucia, that's how the moon looks like from Earth. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, what does the moon look like from the sun? And she said, always full. And I said, exactly. Don't buy into it. Shift your positioning to the source of light, and then you're always full. And you know what she said to me? I thought she'd say, you're crazy, Dad. But she said, thanks, Papa. I was like, oh, you're so cute. So, yeah, beautiful. Something interesting, actually, that sort of a side note, there's a guy, an author named Frank White, who writes about something called the overview effect. The overview effect is actually a phenomenon that happens with astronauts. He's noticed with astronauts. When they go off planet and look back at the Earth, they have a slight shift in consciousness. They have a feeling of union, okay? I call this a portal. There are plenty of portals around. I've seen plenty of portals actually in these natural landscapes. But Again, I'm not saying become an astronaut. You be the portal. You be the portal. So, why is it important to transcend, especially in these times with the pace of technology? Why? Because there is a future on its way. This here, folks, is a reality. This is the digital takeover of human consciousness, and it is happening as we sit here. I kid you not. This is eternal satiation on the virtual construct. It is the eternal prison. Gotcha. Okay. Now let's head back to the national parks. Just watch this clip here.
There were 2 deaths this week at the Grand Canyon. One man accidentally went over the edge while taking a selfie. Janet Shamlian has more on this story.
The Grand Canyon is a landscape of irresistible vistas. Officials say it's where a tourist traveling from Hong Kong died after falling 1,000 feet while using a selfie stick. It happened close to, but not on, the rail-protected skywalk.
We always say that the zoom button is your friend. Make sure that you use that if you want to get a good photo of the canyon.
Last fall at Yosemite, a travel blogging couple fell 800 feet to their deaths. A photographer spotted them moments earlier at the edge of a cliff. A study found in a 7-year period, 259 people worldwide died while taking selfies. More than 70% were men, who researchers say took more risks to get a dramatic shot.
3, 2, 1.
Tech giants have promoted a culture of selfies, and social media is full of daring photos. The rugged 277-mile-long Grand Canyon makes safety rails impossible.
It's a dynamic mountain environment where there's many places where you could fall or walk or hike. There's no way to enclose it.
Experts say the best protection is common sense.
Makes me a little nervous.
Janet Shamlian, CBS News, San Francisco.
So let's go back to our national parks here. Here I am, Instagram post, my own space for self-expression. Autonomy, 112 likes, competence for sure. 7 comments, relatedness. Instagram is happiness. What about this guy? If he didn't have his phone on him at the Grand Canyon, would his landscape look like this? Would he just see a big, giant hole? Probably. Right? But the question is the hole out there or is the hole in here? And if he could figure out how to color the landscape with his colors, what would be on the other side of that membrane? All I saw was a lake, mountains, and some trees. Well, the next time that's all you see, go deeper. What is on the other side of that perception? Save yourself some money, boil some water at home. That's actually this image here on the wall. So, what if you saved yourself? Would you arrive to the eternal spring? Trees block view, and there are too many gray rocks. Now, this is Yosemite National Park. There's an incredible view called tunnel view. I don't see how that's even possible to write this. Jeez, it's incredible. But if you faced that tunnel and got to the end of it, would you be in pure light itself? I'll just sum up with this video here of the National Park Service.
In the last week, we've noticed visitors coming to national parks using their phones to look for elusive digital creatures. We'd like to welcome all you trainers to your national parks, where you might find more than just a new virtual companion. It's exciting to explore new places, and the National Park Service has some great ones in store for you. We have icy tundra, grassy plains, gleaming mountains, placid farms, forests with towering trees and amazing rock formations. National parks are great places to see the best animals and learn the coolest stories. So while you're chasing virtual monsters to add to your collection, take a look around at the beauty of these places. Breathe in the fresh air, enjoy the history. Parks are amazing places to run and play, to hike and to bike, to wander and to learn. Just make sure to keep your eyes open and stay safe. We don't want you stumbling off the path or running into some of our real wildlife while you're looking for the flying, swimming, and crawling creatures on your screens. So go have fun. Get out and explore. That's why we're here.
So I'm going to end on this image here. This is, what park is this? This is called the Pinnacles. This is in California. And there's another book that you'll be receiving walking out of here tonight, which is a poetry book that I've written. Each national park that I've been to has a poem that I've written. And in the poetry, I try to pull things out of the national park that run analogous to our humanity. So when you read these poems, it's also sort of a reflection on ourselves. So what can we learn about ourselves through the park? So I'm going to read to you the poem that goes with this image. This is called Kearsarge Pass. This is why we amateurs reach for our cameras. Go ahead, put the phone between yourself and Kings Canyon. Shoot it all you want, but it won't change anything. It being no different than the disconnect which prompts you to reach for it in the first place. The incomplete experience pocketed for completion at a more convenient time. But when? At home on a computer screen? With likes on social media? What is there to share, really? Half? A portion? A potential of what could have been? Is this what our nature is worth? A pass? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So just check the time here. I do want to open up to question and answer. We actually have a half an hour. Got some hands up already. And if you could just wait for the mic to get to you, we'll need it for the recording.
Hey, John. Congrats. I hope you're enjoying your victory lap. My question is, what game are you playing? I know it's Pokemon Go to a degree. You saved that for the end, but I hope you enjoyed catching the digital creature. It seems to me that you're concerned about brain-computer interfaces and XR. So how are you going to command the attention of those people who are resorting to that because they're not able to go to a national park and they can experience a national park in virtual reality? And they can use apps and XR to help them find daily practice for meditating. What are you doing to provide an alternative other than this forum here in Chelsea, which is not seen by a number compared to the amount of people who played Pokemon Go and found like they were able to reconnect with their childhood and went outside for the first time in 3 years and shared in a community? What are you offering as an alternative other than like national parks and trying to meditate more?
Okay, great question. I'll take that. I like that. His question right there. What he's really saying, I will answer your question. What he's really saying is, I need help. This is a big issue, and I can't do it alone. Tristan Harris can't do it alone. Frances Haugen can't do it alone. All these people, we need the community to come together and look for ways to make this right. That's number one. As far as your question goes, actually digital technology does not concern me at all. Extended reality does not concern me at all. What concerns me is this. And now these natural landscapes, these national parks, it's not about the national park. These are symbols that I've assigned for our nature. What I mean by that is you can experience the wonder and beauty and the magnificence of life without moving from that chair. You do not have to go to a national park. How do you do that? We have to get off the program of imagery. The psychological program, the image-making machine of the psyche device, because it's constantly putting an image between me and the outer world, between me and the person I'm in a relationship with, between me and family. Until this is lifted, we're not seeing the truth of our nature. So I'm not saying that we all have to go to national parks. This is not some elitist thing that only people who can afford it can realize this. Not at all, okay? And remember, I'm also not saying we need to be astronauts. I'm saying realize the space within you, okay? I hope that answered your question. And I do want to say, when you said, what game am I playing? So I just want to be very, very clear. This is no game. I am dead serious about what I'm doing. Okay, thank you. Just wait for the mic, please.
So I've discovered that the fear of missing out has an antidote. It's the joy of missing out. So the thing that I want to present out here is that there is these two words that I just stumbled on, neophilia and what's the other opposite? Neophilia and the opposite of it, which is against something new. So neophilia and neophobia.
So the fear of something new?
Fear of something new and the fear of something, and the attraction to the new. So neophilia and neophobia. So we all need some degree of neophobia and some degree of neophilia.
Can we get off those terms? Just tell me. So we need some degree of being scared of novelty and some degree of, what's the other one?
Approaching the new.
Of wanting novelty.
Wanting new.
Okay.
So it seems like what's happening is in our culture, we're getting disrupted from that sensual experience that we can have, right? And we're supplanting it with something else. So we're really devoted to the object.
Right.
We're forgetting the subject. Right?
Devoted to the object, forgetting the subject. Okay. You're saying that's where we want to be moving to for a better...
That's where the potential is.
Okay, so I'm going to try and pull something out of this. So thank you. So I'm going to do my best here. I don't see a reason to have fear of novelty at all. Having a fear of novelty doesn't interest me. And I don't see why it would interest anybody. A fear of anything other than biological fear, right? I do think, yes, that we do have to be more devoted to the object, but I don't want to say object, I want to say more devoted to the objective. We need to be less subjective. Subjective is always separation. In order for a subject to exist, it needs an object. Subjectivity is the image. You see the world one way, I see it another way, you see it another way. Right? Now, there's always physical subjectivity, right? I'm here and I see that, you see me up here, right? But psychological subjectivity is a symptom of separation. And until that subjectivity ends, we will never reune. We will never commune. We will never remember. So moving into the future, I think it's about that. It's about exactly what I just said. Yeah, I don't know if I answered that question because it was... Next, anyone else?
Hi, John.
Hi.
Thank you. That's the very first thing I want to say.
Oh, you're welcome. That's the next thing I'll say.
My name is Tia Dodd, and I've built a digital mindfulness community called Tenacious You, and it's just focused on aligning our digital habits with our inner work, you know, the inner purpose that you have in your overall well-being, and creating unplugged experiences. So I appreciate you for creating this space for the digital wellness community just to convene over the last month and think about things from a new perspective. There are lots of people out there fighting the good fight, so I'm grateful to be a part of this. My question for you. Earlier, during your walkthrough tour, someone asked you about privacy as it relates to technology and it growing and everything. And you said that the best way to protect your identity is to not have one. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so the question is in relation to a private tour that I gave of the exhibition. And a gentleman asked the question, well, he said he's concerned about AI owning our identity, stealing our identity. And I said, and I probably should have apologized after I said it, I said, the best way to make sure that your identity is not stolen is to not have one. What did I mean by that? Take Instagram. The feed that you're getting on Instagram, the algorithm, is a mirror of this algorithm. Okay? If you constantly have patterns, AI is going to spot that, and it will exploit that. There's always going to be problems with privacy. I mean, AI... You think about this. How do I answer this? Even if you have patterns, when that pattern is perceived to be you, because to buy into an identity is to buy into a pattern, it's to buy into a program. If you can detach from that, you'll still have patterns, but if you can detach from that, you're invincible to whatever tries to control you at that dimension, at that space. And we can get very, very just practical about this. So I'm sure all of you in here have a bunch of friends that sort of know who you are. They know your habits, they know your patterns. Are you going to allow them to manipulate you? Can you be grounded enough to not let people take advantage of that part of you? The thing with the transcendent dimension, which I called up here fifth dimensional consciousness, but the thing with that dimension is that its very nature is non-illusion. It's non-artifice. It's non-virtual. So there's actually an immunity in that space where artificiality cannot even puncture it, because the keys to that gate need to be 100% nature. Sorry. So, any more questions?
Hi, John. I just have a kind of simple question, but just kind of wondering, why do you engage in social media and Instagram? Like, what do you gain from that?
So, the question is this. These devices, they are made to be our tools. They're supposed to serve us. Hello? Right? We've abdicated so much power to these devices that they've become our reality and we've become its tool. So the question is, how do we reclaim that power and return the device back to its tool function? Now, that's just the digital device. The same is true for the psyche device. Thought is supposed to be a tool. And we have given over so much of our power to the thought that the thought has replaced reality. That's what a belief is, folks. The worship of a thought. Nothing more. I don't care what God it is. I don't care what value system it is. It is the worship of a thought. So I don't see a problem in social media. The question is, are you using it as a tool? Or are you using it in a way that replaces your reality, your quality of life? Okay? Thanks.
Why Pokemon Go? Like that? Why that example? Why just that? Why not anything else that children use nowadays, like Fortnite or whatever?
So that's I love that question. Oh, yeah, great question, love that. That'll always stick in my mind as one of the great questions. So it's Pokemon Go. First of all, I don't know what Fortnite is. I mean, I know what it is, right? But I've never played it. Here's what I really liked about Pokemon Go. I've never seen someone playing Fortnite walking around outside and falling off a cliff. I've never seen someone playing Fortnite and walking across the street and getting hit by a car. Okay? I have seen people playing Pokemon Go doing that. So it was really the first time for me that I saw a game really replacing reality, where the people who were playing it were no longer human. They were already avatars.
Hey, John, Avi Simajola. I've been a TM meditator for a number of years now. And my question is, what does your meditation or spiritual practice look like today, and how has that influenced this body of work?
Yeah, fair question. I don't have a spiritual practice. The problem that I'm seeing, and I sort of mentioned it in this presentation, I said you become Buddhist, then you meditate, then that doesn't work, right? The problem that I find with spiritual practice is you have life, and then you have your practice. It's separate. Either it's all meditation or it's not. You ever hear of, life is like, you're peeling the outer layers of the onion, like spiritualities, and you go into the inner layer of the onion. It's about just stripping it down and peeling off all sort of like the scaffolding. And does that sound, have you heard anything like that? Like coming, okay, great, okay, good. So for me, just for me, meditation is a process. It has an end goal. It peels the onion until you get down to the very last thing, which is what? It's not a peel, it's the onion itself. at some point, you have to just get rid of the onion. At some point, you can strip it down, process. But at some point, you have to just get rid of the onion. And my question is, rather than stripping all that stuff down, let's just get rid of the onion. I just wonder if process is an addiction of the mind. And I know if this is the David Lynch, I'm in partner with David Lynch Foundation, so maybe there's some TM people that don't like that. But I'm serious. There's a friend of mine, he does Vipassana meditation, he's in Israel, and he's speaking to me, and he said, but he said, but this takes time, and you have to meditate, and they say it can take thousands of lifetimes. And I said, what if this lifetime is that 1,000th lifetime? How would you know? I mean, we're all just waiting for meditation to do it for us, or for this to do it for us. And I deeply respect meditation, and let's go to the dimension of duality, okay? And I'm just gonna call that fourth dimensional consciousness, okay? We live in this world that's very hectic and whatnot, and sometimes we need to just quiet the mind, still the mind. There's sanity in it. I mean, this whole exhibition is sort of about that, the quietening of the mind, and it's very important. But at the end of the day, as far as I know for myself, it's like meditation is like taking a shower. You feel great after it. You feel clean. But what happens? Then you start getting dirty again. And then you have to meditate again. It's the same thing with yoga. You feel great. You're on that high. And then you got to keep doing it. And I wonder if there's a dimension where you're always clean and don't need a shower anymore. The last question of the entire month.
Oh,
front row seat, let's hear it.
That is pressure. Thanks, John. My name is Kathy Lilly, and what I was originally going to ask is, going through all this, why the word addiction wasn't used at all. You just used it a few minutes ago. And with respect to, there's process addictions, as you know, substance, which I definitely know. I'm sober for 30 years. One day at a time. I love what you've put together here. And, the concept of habituation.
I don't.
Oh.
I'm not very smart or well-read, honestly, so please fill me in.
I think we'd all beg to differ, but I think you're capturing the journey towards that physical, the mental obsession, the physical craving. And in terms of habituation is when it's a psychological concept, but it also has a physiological basis for a number of people where they start to feel dull with the repeated exposure of something. And having worked in the fragrance industry, it's like wearing the same perfume, but yet nobody else can smell it. Or you can't smell it and everybody else can. So I guess I'm asking, do you see yourself bringing the attention to the initial decline into these attachments, these heavy gravity?
So this exhibition is, did you call it habituation? Is that the name? So this exhibition is one, if I could use a term, it's the process of individuation. I mean, this exhibition is about leaving the virtual construct, facing the inner landscape of our pain, and transcending that to our nature, a higher state of consciousness. The narrative of addiction, I usually put this way. And I'll just use it with devices because that's sort of the context that we're in right now. I often say that the device is like a parasite. Okay? It's an artificial parasite. Now, in order for a parasite to have any kind of power or life force, it needs a host upon which to feed. That host, this artificial host, I call that the artificial self or the separate self. And this relationship is one of mutualism. It's a parasitic relationship called mutualism, where the stronger the parasite, the stronger the host. The stronger the host, the stronger the parasite. That's the addiction. And what we're seeing is a lot of courageous groups and activism going after big tech, changing the business model, wanting better legislation to protect us. And that is important, but that, as far as I'm concerned, is a repellent. It is not a remedy. A repellent is always reactionary. It's always late. And at the speed at which technology is running away from us, we're going to begin to show up even later and later and later, just based on the pure speed of it. And I think a repellent is important, no doubt, and I support all of these people that are in that fight. But I'm also interested in a remedy. The only way to rid oneself of a parasite is to get rid of the host, to get rid of the artificial self. What does that mean? That means coming to our true nature. So, just end it there. Thank you.